everyone, and welcome to another episode of Catching Up with Carl. I'm Carl Bauer. My director is Dylan Letcavage. Today, we're going to be catching up with Bridget Mathias. Bridget was a longtime coach at Central Columbia High School. She happens also to be the wife of the retired superintendent at Central Columbia, Harry Mathias. But first, we're going to be sitting down with Nick Sebes. Nick was an all-around great athlete at Mount Carmel High School. In fact, he was a state champion in football and a state champion in track and field. I know you're going to enjoy these two episodes here on Catching Up with Carl. Hello, everybody, and welcome to SECV8. This is Catching Up with Carl. I'm Carl Bauer, and today I have the pleasure of talking with Bridget Mathias. Bridget was a coach, and she taught at Central Columbia High School. Bridget, thank you very much for joining us today in Catching Up with Carl.
Thanks, Carl, for having me.
All right, I have a couple questions for you. First of all, where did you go to high school?
I actually graduated from Central Columbia in 1980. Okay. So I'm a local person. I've been local, was fortunate to be able to come back and teach at my alma mater.
Well, I also did the same thing.
Did you?
Graduated from Warrior Run, and then I went back to teach, and 37 years later, I retired from Warrior Run. What sports did you do in high school?
I actually played field hockey, basketball, and softball. What?
I would have guessed that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those were the primary ones at the time, so that's what we did.
You went to college then where?
I went to East Stroudsburg University in health and phys ed, and then I actually played college softball there.
What took you back to Central Columbia High School? How did you get the opportunity to go back there to teach?
Well, I was really blessed in the timing, and that the woman who was teaching health and phys ed was going through a private adoption, and I was without a job and was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life, and got a phone call. Actually, it was 2 days before fall sports started, and said, "Hey, are you available? Could you come in for an interview?" Which basically was, at that time, it was a job offer. You know, now it's a little more difficult because you have to go through, jump through a few hoops and whatever. But I was very blessed that my name came up, and they called me in. We had a conversation. And then they just said, well, field hockey starts in 2 days, so you're the head field hockey coach. I'm like, oh, well, okay. I was totally unprepared. And I was like, well, okay, I could try to figure that out. And at that time, it wasn't like you could hop on the internet and, surf the web and hunt for all kinds of things to help you out. And there you are, a new college graduate, really not sure where you were going or what you were doing. And you found yourself not only having a teaching job, being blessed with that, but now you're in charge of a varsity program right out of the gate. So there was a big learning curve there, but it was a lot of fun getting, starting to get my feet wet and get moving forward.
You did have the advantage of having played field hockey, so that certainly was a help.
Yeah, I did. And, I had some college friends who had played field hockey at East Stroudsburg. As a softball player, we had 2 seasons. We played in the fall and we had played in the spring. So once you chose to do that, that's probably the only college sport you could play. So I had some friends who were field hockey players and at that time it was phone calls. It wasn't, you can send me a text message or an email, so it was like you had to try to catch them on their home phone because we didn't even have cell phones at that time. So you would call and leave messages with their parent who answered the phone. And after connecting with them, my anxiety dropped a little bit, and then you just kind of fell right into, okay, this is what I think we need to do. And we started moving forward.
So how many years did you coach field hockey then?
I actually did 2 stints. I coached from the fall of 1984 until 2001. And I was the athletic director at that time. Like in 1999, I got appointed the athletic director, and I really felt it wasn't a good thing to be a head coach the same time you were trying to be an athletic director. So I stepped aside for quite a while. And I was the athletic director for like 9 years. And then they asked me to go back to coach when the job came open. And I was like, I really don't want to do that. I've been there. And then I ended up coming back in my last 5 years that I taught. I ended up taking the program over and coaching again. So, so all in all, I probably coached field hockey for like 23 years.
Well, our paths crossed, not necessarily from field hockey, although we were opponents a couple times there, but really track and field. That was a great love of yours also.
Yeah, and that's a funny story too, because you're teaching health and phys ed, and you get called into the athletic director's office. So they're like, oh, by the way, we need a track and field coach. And I'm like, I don't know anything about track and field. I played, I played field hockey and basketball, and I played college softball. Like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And fortunately, one of my co-coaches was Fred Lenig from Selinsgrove. And he really, helped to mentor me a little bit. And, he taught phys ed. At that time, I was teaching driver ed. So, I'm riding around in the car with the kids while they're driving. And I was fortunate because then anything you learned, you had to read. So I would spend my days like reading track and field books, trying to figure it out. And so we had a decent distance coach, and Joe Kelly had been there before me, and he was one of our principals. So he would sit with me and help me plan my practices. But it was just one of those things, you got thrown into it. And then you started like realizing that you did have a love and passion for it. I didn't like the weather during track and field. I mean, one day it's blustery cold, and the next day it's so hot, and by the end of the meet you're freezing again. But it was really a fun experience. I enjoyed it.
Well, you had some wonderful assistants also. I remember very well talking with those guys, and you just had a great support system there.
Yeah, we had Barry Lee, who helped me with the throws, because of course I didn't know anything about those. And he helped me there. He had competed at Shippensburg, and so he helped me there. And then several years into it, Doug Brown, who was the head coach for a long time at Central, he came on staff and really worked with the jumping events and the hurdlers. And, so it was good. We had a good team, and every team, you kind of like are, you get upset with each other. You don't necessarily agree. But the thing that was nice, it wasn't like I was the head girls coach and I had to do it all on my own. We went to practice. We kind of said, okay, you're taking the jumpers, you're taking the throwers, you take the distance people. And it really worked out. We were a great team, and that really helped me a lot.
How many years did you coach track then?
I coached track for 10 years. And then I realized that wasn't my wheelhouse, and that there were other people who were on staff that would, better suit our kids. And I was like, hey, now's the time to step away and give people who were younger than I was, and, we're track enthusiasts and cross country enthusiasts, the opportunity to do that. So it was a good transition out of that, coaching that sport. Well, the other thing that happened too was they started junior high field hockey. Oh. So the field hockey played in the spring. So it gave me an opportunity to go in the spring and work with my 7th and 8th graders, who then the 8th graders would become 9th graders in the fall. So I took advantage of that too. And I was the head junior high coach. So I was basically coaching 2 seasons of field hockey at that time. So that really helped that field hockey program.
So you were field hockey coach, track and field coach, athletic director. You really did it all.
Well, I coached basketball for 5 years too. So it was another one of those conversations the first year of teaching, and you really wanted a job because they were hard to come by. And you just got called into the office, and they kept saying, okay, you're coaching basketball. I'm like, the only thing I know about basketball was in college, I worked with the college basketball coach. I ran like the shot clock for women's basketball. That's about it. I did play, but it wasn't like, it was just something you did in the winter. So when they said that, I was like, oh, okay, well, let's go do it. And that's just kind of what you did. And, added a couple extra dollars to my pocket. But again, it was one of those things where I had an assistant that was very good, and he helped me. And then, after a couple years, I realized again, that wasn't my forte, and he was very good at it. So I stepped aside and he took over the program. And then I started officiating. So I enjoyed that.
That was my next question.
Yeah.
When did your officiating start, and how long did you do that?
I officiated basketball. Let's see. So I'm going to say I got into that like in the late 80s. So it was like 88, 89. And then I officiated until about 10 years. I did that too. I got pregnant with my son when I was 38, and I figured that probably wasn't a good idea for me to running up and down the basketball court. So I got out of it, but I had a lot of fun doing that too. Met a lot of people, was fortunate enough to do a couple Eastern finals in both AA and AAA, and had good, met a lot of people through basketball, and it was fun. I mean, people are yelling at you every day, but it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed doing that.
Always exciting to be close to the athletes and to get to know what they are on the athletic arena. You see them sometime in class, but to have them as a field hockey player or as a track star, that's something that really is different.
Oh, yes, it is. And one of the things that I really enjoyed was having my kids in class. And, all through my coaching career, and, sometimes maybe to my demise, I really focused on their academics and said, your students first and your athletes second. And that was a lot of our philosophy with our program. We always gave the kids like a day off during the middle of the week because you needed to work on we couldn't have you being tired in class. We needed you to study and as more into their end game as a student necessarily than as an athlete. So that's where I put a lot of my focus. And even professionally, I enjoyed being in the classroom. So I felt that my coaching career was the extracurricular. And what I needed to do in the classroom was the thing that was most important.
Well, I've known Harry Mathias since he was a little boy.
Yeah.
How did Harry Mathias come into your life?
Well, we both started teaching at Central at the same time. He was a football coach, an assistant football coach for Bob Rom. And Bobby Rom, I was the only female coach on staff at that time. And if you could imagine now, you're within the guys group and they hang out after school and they had their coach's locker room and I was never allowed to be in there, of course. So Bobby Rom felt, you needed to start hanging out with the coaches a little bit. And so I would go out after football games with them. And Harry, of course, was an assistant coach. So we just got chatting and, one thing led to another. Next thing okay, we're total opposites. He loves math. I hate math. But it worked out. I never have to do the checkbook. So it's pretty good.
Yeah, that's nice. That makes it nice. So yeah. You have only one child?
Yeah, we have one child. Well, I felt I had kids all along. I mean, I was coaching 35 girls in field hockey. I didn't want a child to come home to. No, I'm just kidding. But you put a lot of time and energy into that. And, when you think about that is your family and you really focused on what you were doing there and you put a lot of personal things aside. And, sooner or later, it was God's plan, I guess, for me to have a child of my own. And so that I was pregnant when I was 38. So I'm an older mom, so it was good.
Like you, I always felt a very special bond with the athletes I had. You just established something with them, and it's really precious.
It is, and now, it's as I see some of my athletes becoming adults. Now it's actually where we're starting to have conversations, or they're shooting you a note, or something like that. There are a lot of coaches that get really involved with their kids now when they're in high school and what they're doing right after. And I kind of like stepping back and watching how they evolved as adults and where they are in their life. And it's been fun. It's been fun watching them, mature and grow.
Well, those things were all very, very exciting and just great memories. What are you into now, Bridget?
Well, it's funny because my son is a golfer and he was a golfer in high school, played golf and baseball were his two sports. And right before his freshman year, we got the name of Laura Tyler as a swing coach for him to help teach him to play golf. And she was at Susquehanna at the time. And so she started working with him and just talking on the practice tee while they were working. We just chatted and, created a little bit of a friendship. And then as I was about to retire, and we had this connection from taking him to lessons and those types of things. As I was about to retire, she was moving to Frosty Valley and started a kids program there. Now she had one at Susquehanna, but it wasn't like real big. It was, it was big, but she did like clinics in the summer. And so she said, would you have any interest in starting this clinic with me? And so I jumped right out of teaching in June of 2017. And in the spring of 2018, I worked with her and we started US Kids Golf Academy at Frosty Valley. So she went and got trained for a couple of weeks, and then I went and got trained as a coach. And so we're into that. We started with, I think our first year in the fall, we had 8 children. In the spring, we had about 15. And this past summer, 2 years later, we had 90 kids in our program.
Wow.
So it's exploding. We work with kids 5 through 12 most of the time. We do have programs for kids that are 3 to 5. We work with them on Saturday mornings. But, I always said God knew that I could not have lasted in education for 34 years if I taught elementary school. He put me in secondary for a reason. But then in the second part of my life, I'm really enjoying having an opportunity to work with young kids and expose them to golf. And I would joked around. I retired to spend 38 hours a week on the golf course, but I'm not playing. I'm coaching with kids. So it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun.
I'm sure you find that the younger kids are really receptive to what you have to say too.
Well, they're sponges, and we have a bunch of kids that really have developed a love for the game. And matter of fact, I was at the club the other day, and DMville is on, like, they're on remote learning. And well, this spring it actually was a blessing because the kids were out of school, they were at home, and so we started after school program, and we would get kids. We'd have to like say, well, we can only take so many of you because we have to socially distance. So we would have groups of 4 just walking by themselves out on the golf course and carrying their own bags. And our members, we're very fortunate that the members at Frosty Valley are receptive. The management has been really good, and they look forward to seeing the kids. And like I was going to say, the other day I was at the club playing with a couple women, and 2 of our kids were walking out number 10 with their bags, and they were so excited that there they are able to play golf by themselves because they understand. We have special tees where they tee off from, and they played a couple holes, and they were so excited to tell me, yeah, we played by ourselves today. We thought it was fun. So it's been very rewarding.
Well, you mentioned Laura Tyler, and I interviewed Hannah Rabb just a couple of weeks ago. She ended up second this year in the state golf tournament. Laura really helped her out. She coached her for a number of years.
Oh, Laura's coached with her like since she was little. I don't even know how many years Laura coached with her, but yeah, it was fun because I went with Laura to the state tournament and got to watch Hannah play, and it's really exciting, watching those kids. And again, she was somebody who started really young, and as a freshman, she finished second in the state. That was pretty awesome.
It just had a great tournament, and she's a terrific girl. She knows how to talk. She's very mature for her years.
Mm-hmm. And she's very grateful for everything she's had. I mean, she works very hard. She works hard in the off season just as well as when she's in season. And, she does have a good support system, which helps, but she doesn't ever take anything for granted. She just really is very humble in her success, as well as her game is very good, but you're not going to hear her talk about how great she is. She's always looking to help other people too. So she's a great teammate too for her friends at Warrior Run.
Well, Bridget, you have done so much for the Central Columbia School District. You can be proud of the accomplishments you have had. You and your husband Harry you've really etched your name in the history of Central Columbia High School, and I really commend you for that.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I got criticized one time because I was told that my blood runs blue because of my loyalty to Central Columbia, and I don't take that I take that as a compliment. I mean, that was our life. And it's funny, for 34 years, that's what you did. You gave your life to being there. You didn't think twice about 15-hour days. Later in my coaching career, our field hockey games, a lot of them were at night. So we lived 25 minutes from the school. So you'd be getting back with your kids around 10 o'clock and getting home and wanting to watch a little bit of film and then having to get back into school, play and practice the next day. It did become your life. And it's one that I don't regret. I don't regret 1 minute that I spent there. And, it was a pleasure. I felt very blessed, very, very blessed.
Again, Bridget, thank you very much for being with us here on Catching Up with Carl.
Thanks for the opportunity. I appreciate it. It was good to see you.
We thank you for being with us. Stick around. We'll be back with more after this. Hello, everybody, and welcome to SECVH's Catching Up with Carl. There's a name that you might have heard back in the day, and you're wondering, I wonder whatever happened to Nick Sebes. Well, you're going to find out because we have Nick Sebes with us here on Catching Up with Carl. Nick, thank you very much for joining us.
Well, thank you. It's my pleasure. I appreciate the opportunity to sit and talk with you.
All right, we're going to talk about some things. People remember your name because when you were an athlete at Mount Carmel, everybody heard about you. What year did you graduate?
2000.
Year 2000, okay. You of course were a tremendous athlete. You played football. I know you were in track and field. Did you do anything in the winter also?
No, just we ran indoor track.
Okay. I remember I coached track at Warrior Run High School. Mm-hmm. We always came over for events at the Silver Bowl. What a tremendous facility. You were very fortunate to have that when you were a young runner.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We had a lot of very big meets there. From the Mount Carmel Invitational, the Breslin Relays, a lot of great competition came through and ran on that track.
And of course, the facility was just so good.
Yep.
Let's talk about football first. Who was your coach?
So Coach Dave Whitey Williams.
And he took over, I guess, for Jazz Diminik.
He did. Yep.
I remember when Jazz was the coach there too, but you had a state championship, I believe, with Whitey, didn't you?
We did. We won in '98. Was my junior season. Is when we were winning almost every other year at that time point. So it seems like every even number year we were winning. And it was '98, which was my junior season. We ended up winning it then and made it to the state final my senior year, but lost to Tyrone, to a close one there.
And you were the quarterback.
Correct.
Yeah. Did you play any other positions during your 4-year career?
Played a little bit of wide receiver. I ended up breaking my hand during my senior season during the playoffs, and converted a little bit to wide receiver at that time. And that gave Dave Shinsky the opportunity to come in and play quarterback, even as a freshman, and he played phenomenally well, at such an early age, and sort of helped get us to that state championship my senior year.
That was another big name that I remember very well, because you were in the headlines all the time, Mount Carmel, that is. Those names really ring a bell, and even here in Watsontown, we're reading your name in the paper all the time. Your track and field career was very exciting too. What events?
Well, primarily ran the 400, ran the relays as well, 4x1, 4x4, and ran the 200 as well.
And you won a state championship in the 400 meters.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, my junior and senior season. Yep.
What was your best time?
48.5 in high school. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Pretty darn good.
Yep.
I'm sure you were the anchor on the relay team, I'm assuming.
Correct. Yeah. Yes, I was.
You could pick up some ground that maybe your teammates couldn't stay up with. So you learned early on that people relied on you to pull them out of some bad situations.
Well, we had some great relays. I recall back my sophomore year, we ended up placing second at states in the 4x4. And we had a lot of talent throughout all of the sprints while I was there. And so I think it was fortunate to kind of be able to train with those other phenomenal athletes during my time. Just helps you improve as an individual when you have teammates that are fantastic working with you.
Well, one of the other things that I did was I was the announcer for district track and field, so I called your name several times. I just know that's true. So then you attracted the interest, I'm sure, of a lot of colleges and decided finally to go where?
I ended up going to Stanford, where I was there for 5 years. Was on the football team for 4 years and 5 years on the track and field team, where I was a team captain there my senior year. And really feel fortunate to be given that opportunity to not only go and compete at a high level, but also to be educated at one of the finest institutions in the country. So, really am grateful for that opportunity.
Well, I remember also seeing you on TV playing for Stanford, and I said to myself, I know that guy. He went to Mount Carmel. I was telling my wife, oh no, she said, yeah. But why all the way to the West Coast? Why didn't you just say somewhere on the East Coast instead?
That's a really good question. There are a number of factors that played into it. I knew I wanted to run track as well as play football, and Stanford's track and field team as well as football team, highly reputable. And so I knew I'd be able to, compete at the highest level for, both sports. And that's something I really wanted and I look forward to. Prior to my time there, back in 2000, the football team made it to the Rose Bowl and the track and field team had won the conference championship. So I think, it was, a difficult decision to leave home and go so far away. But, from an academic standpoint, as well as given the opportunity to compete at the highest level in track and football, to me, it made the most sense.
I'm sure it was a hard sell for the coaches too to share you, since you were playing Division I football and running Division I track at the same time. That's quite an assignment.
Yeah, it was a lot to juggle. It was. The only thing I thought would make it harder is if I would, go and take on a pre-med course load, which I ended up doing. And so I had kind of a full plate while I was there. But I wouldn't have it any other way. It was wonderful.
You made a big name for yourself. I remember, as I said, watching you on TV. You mentioned you played at the Rose Bowl. What's that like?
So the team made it to the Rose Bowl the year before I got there. But just playing in that stadium, and playing in Autzen Stadium in Oregon, or coming to Notre Dame and playing at Notre Dame, we have Stanford has a really tough schedule year after year, and we even made it out to Boston College, and so we flew all over the place to travel and play not only on the West Coast but over on the East as well, and gave my family some opportunities to come and see some games, and so yeah, it was really great.
Very, very exciting lifestyle too, I'm sure.
Yeah. The traveling with football is one thing, but the track and field team travels in the winter almost every week, going from meet to meet during the winter season. So it is a lot of travel, and a great opportunity though for a young athlete to get out there and compete against some really quality competition.
Did you ever have any aspirations to go pro, play pro football?
I think every athlete, when they're younger, envisions, being a professional football player, basketball player, football, or, soccer, track and field, whatever it is. And so, yeah, I mean, I considered it and thought about it early on. And that didn't work out, but fortunately I was able to, get a good degree and do something with that. And even though professionally I didn't become a professional athlete, I was able to, go on to medical school and be in the position I'm in now.
And what exactly are you doing now for your life's work?
I'm a dermatologist here at Geisinger in Danville. I've been here for 5 years now. So I decided to move closer to home. I've been married for several years, have 3 beautiful daughters, and my wife is from outside Philadelphia. So it made sense to move closer to family for both of us, and professionally for me to be at Geisinger was been a good opportunity to work here, and it's been really great.
Certainly, the degree from Stanford that gets a lot of people's attention because Stanford is one of the really class universities in this entire country.
Yeah, it helps. Every little bit helps. Yeah.
So you're a dermatologist now. Do you have any long-range goals beyond that? Is there something you have in mind that you'd like to do after your dermatology career is over?
Well, right now I've actually switched gears a little bit. I was a general dermatologist here for 5 years, and I'm currently, I stepped back and I'm currently doing a surgical fellowship right now within the Department of Dermatology here at Geisinger. So that's a 1-year surgical fellowship, and I'll be moving on to do more surgical treatment of skin cancers primarily while I'm here. So a little bit of a career shift here.
Yeah. Well, Nick, I really appreciate your being here on Catching Up with Carl. It's been a lot of fun talking to you.
Oh, I really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Well, I'm glad that you're willing to do it. Thank you, everybody, for being with us. This has been Nick Sebes here on Catching Up with Carl. We'll be back later.